Hi there, and you're watching Dugoscopy TV. I'm Darren McDermott. I have Yves Zieba in the studio with me today to have a special look at innovation. He is an innovation expert. Welcome today.
Thank you.
So if we look at Silicon Valley, now we have the four kings. We have Google, we have Apple, we have Facebook, and we have Amazon. So in your opinion, who is the cream of the crop, and in the future, who will be able to distinguish themselves? You think it will be a war between Google and Apple?
Well, I think they're all very great investment opportunities. They all have great technologies. They are clearly giants and market leaders for what they do. In the future, it's difficult to predict. I think they have each specific trends and specific strengths too. So, for instance, Apple is very strong in design. Google is very strong in technology, and developers like their technology a lot. Facebook has a very strong community of fans and builds a lot of great games apps on their platform. So they each have very, very good opportunities for the future.
And looking at Facebook, the world is all about social media right now. But Facebook, it's so successful, but it wasn't the first of its kind. There was many like it. We had MySpace, Friendster, and Bebo. Now, Bebo, I don't know if you remember it, but I used it in university and it completely fell off the map. But which is quite interesting right now is that the owner, Michael Birch, he sold it for $850 million to AOL and he bought it back for just $1 million. Now, you heard the man, Bebo is growing up. He's completely renaissance, complete change, and trying something new. Now, will it work? Who knows? But just tell us your views on Facebook's success and this whole war between the social media platforms.
Well, you're right in saying it's a war. It's an economic war, and it has become very difficult to become a Facebook competitor or Twitter competitor or LinkedIn competitor. There are still opportunities. There are still some niche, very local niche, or building a kind of a new Facebook, highly secured. So there are still some opportunities, and we see some new platform emerging. As far as Bebo is concerned, I hope they're going to make a good comeback, but it's going to be a difficult marketplace now to enter because it's mature. You have established market leaders like the one you've mentioned, so Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and it's difficult to enter into this market right now.
And all eyes will be on Twitter's IPO, which is coming out very soon. Now, the New York Stock Exchange did a run test during the weekend because of the disaster that happened with Facebook's IPO. So what are your views on this?
Well, I think they are preparing it very well, testing it extensively with hundreds of thousands of orders because they don't want to repeat what happened with Facebook. So I'm quite confident that the Twitter IPO is gonna run smoothly from an operational point of view. The market has appetite for an investment like Twitter, so I think it should be a good IPO. The investors are very keen to learn more about Twitter, so they have lots of questions about how they make their revenues, how much they depend on advertising revenues versus data licensing revenues, and they're also very curious to know about their client base. So who are the clients who are paying for advertising? Are they a small number of very large advertisers, or are they a long tail of very small advertisers? So these questions, I think, are very top of the mind in lots of investors' minds at the moment.
So what are you expecting to see from the IPO? Is it really that big?
Well, Twitter is very big. It's not as big as Facebook in terms of revenue or in terms of number of users, but it's still a very important social media company, a growth company. So it's going to be very interesting for the market to look at this IPO.
Great. And looking at this, comparisons, what do you think? Walk us through some of this.
Well, I think from a cost-based viewpoint, Twitter has had a lot of cost because they decided to develop in-house, and that's been a big decision. So they still don't make any profit. Their revenue is growing, but their cost is growing too. So I think it's going to be an interesting time from a market viewpoint. There's appetite for such an IPO. In terms of users, I think it's still growing. It has still potential to grow. The big question is around the different business models and how far they can push the advertising business model.
So Yves, before we wrap up, now I know you help startups. So what are the best ways for companies to build their very own innovation accelerators and become like some of these big companies?
Well, there are many lessons that big companies can learn from the small startups. There's now a better methodology with startup weekends, for instance. There's the emergence of a role of startup mentor or startup coach, which they can also use for their own incubator. And there are new hybrid models of innovation accelerators, which use methodologies from venture capitalists and methodologies from business builders. So there's a lot of things that any company can learn from this process. And maybe the most important one is the way entrepreneurs use social media. And it's very important for any company to be plugged into this entrepreneurial social media.
Thank you very much, Yves.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Dúchascopy TV. I hope you enjoy this very, very special look at innovation. Do stay tuned as we have plenty more coming up on the show. See you soon.